Welcome back. I hope you have started familiarizing yourself with the UX world and the conversations that are happening online and on blogs. I know it can feel like a fire hose worth of information, so don't feel overwhelmed. We are going to start by learning about a few UX skills and get at some of the fundamentals for building a website under our belts. In this video, we'll be reviewing the web design process, talk about the agile development cycle, review user-centered strategies, personas, and user profiles, find some business objectives, relate and organize some information architecture, sitemaps, and build out some web technology and responsive framework knowledge. So let's get moving on these web fundamentals. Web design follows a multi-step process. Take a look at this 6-step process. From discover to manage and grow, it follows steps that can be repeated and copied to build and make for successful websites. User experience skills, tools, and thinking weaves their way into each aspect of the journey to produce better, faster, more reliable, and usable outcomes. Learning and repeating a process is about maintaining quality and helping solve problems. Take a look at this diagram for agile development, which allows us to build cost-effective software quickly. Agile considers an iterative process that allows for testing and course adjustment as you move through development. Solutions are broken off into sections rather than all at once, allowing for the agile cycle to complete and iterate quickly. If you maintain trust in a method, you will be able to monitor, speed up, and repeat success. During the invent and build sections of a website, teams that design can rely on an agile design cycle to make and build better websites, products, or services. Like any problem, the first place is where to start. When thinking like a UX designer, that means starting with your user and getting to understand what are their needs, what are their existing issues, what do they love, hate, and what do they want. When solving web design problems, we need to keep in mind that users are people. And if we understand their motivations, we can help them through better solutions and thus better experiences. If you know your audience, you can then build for their needs. The importance of thinking of your user as a relationship and not a transaction, because essential in building value is what is part of making a great experience. User experience is a conversation, an exchange of ideas. If you never learn who and why your users are, then you will make personal assumptions, which could be potentially costly and wrong for your users. To understand your end user, it is useful to build user profiles or personas. Take a look at these two examples. Each persona lays out a few key aspects in keeping your audience under consideration. There's their name, gender, user quote, and personality. There's how good they are at technology and user traits. Think about and building for your user requires empathy. And when your goals and the goals of your user become aligned, you can accomplish a great experience for them. Personas can be short and sweet or in-depth and detailed. Either can help you in thinking about your users, which becomes extremely important when building websites and maintaining great user experiences. Now that we have our user in mind, what comes next is planning and interpretation. To build a great plan, you have to know what is the problem. The budget, scope of work, then, what are the technology requirements, the timeline. If the problem is business X needs to update their e-commerce website to capture more sales online, then you start by defining a KPI. A KPI is a key performance indicator. It is a benchmark for defining success and becomes an anchor point when thinking through a problem. An example of a KPI is business needs 1,000 more sales a month. Since UX helps solve problems, it is recommended to translate business KPIs, like the one we discussed above, into human-centered KPIs. The business KPI equals increase sales by 1,000. While a UX KPI would be help more users complete their checkout process in fewer and clearer steps, making the KPI human-centered. Business wants more people on their site. More visual on a product equals more purchases, which equals more money. A UX designer recognizes that people buy stuff, and if you help that user with the checkout process, it will lead to more sales for the business. Once your KPI is set, and you have defined a user-centered goal, now we can start defining what needs to change, should be redesigned, UX, what the UX is, or build a new site to achieve that KPI or goal. For a website, we would start by defining the structure through a sitemap. A sitemap is information architecture and is a task that breaks down a list of pages for a website that are accessible by crawlers and users. Sitemaps help us define the number of pages, content types, the higher level hierarchy of the website pages. Take a look at this example. Sitemaps help structure and define the potential pages, as well as how many templates we would need to be considered in order to get all the content located on the site. The sample shown shows a sitemap for a boutique hotel and outlines 10 template types for each major navigation header. Page and templates are similar. However, templates can be used multiple times by many pages. Templating websites allows us to keep design and development time down, which can help control the cost of a website. We will be using our website maps soon, as UX starting out is highly concentrated on structure and organization. Now we're starting to cook with some fire. Once you have some basic web structure taking shape, you can start defining some technical aspects of your website. Any website has 3 layers that make up the technology that need to be considered. Let's start from the inside out. But remember that UX design starts first and is augmented by tech and dev. It is a conversation, as all parties have to come together to build a great experience. The data layer, what kind of content, images, whether they're JPEGs, GIFs, TIFFs, or PNGs, whether it's video, copy, how is it stored, how big is it, etc. This data layer requires us an understanding of media type and what the user is going to do with that media and data. Number 2, the backend, the code base of how that content gets served up and interacted with by a web browser and a user. This code base applies the logic and order of how users engage with a website. Backend technology also allows us to maintain and update content management for any particular site. The last, and sometimes sexiest of these, is the front end, the UI and the design. It's the look and feel. This is how a content from your server looks on your browser. The back end is the closet. The front end is how it gets assembled and shown to the world. Your closet can be organized and structured, but others don't need to know. They only see what you show them out in the world. Now we know the pieces and how do they interact. A UX designer needs to consider how their user will navigate through a website. Take a look at this graph. It shows that mobile website traffic surpassed desktop traffic on websites in the beginning of 2014. The proliferation of smartphones, tablets, technology, and media queries, i.e. responsive website frameworks, has increased this access, but is also a function of human trends and meeting users where they are heading. Mobile is trending. You will hear mobile first as a strategy for design, thinking, and providing solutions for users through the web. Luckily, we can build for mobile and desktop simultaneously through the use of responsive web design frameworks. A framework is a standardized set of components, practices, and criteria for dealing with a common type of problem, i.e. a website. In web design, A framework becomes a package of standardized code, HTML, CSS, JS, documents, etc., which can be used to support the development of a website. Think of a framework as the building blocks for what will be put together to make a website. As most websites share similar structure and components, a framework codebase allows for us to develop faster rather than designing and developing from scratch. Here's an example of a very popular UI framework, Twitter Bootstrap. As you can see, it provides a starting place for all the components that become a site when assembled. Twitter Bootstrap uses media queries and is built on a responsive grid. The rise of mobile trends has resulted in the rise of responsive design techniques. A responsive structure creates a set of columns that reorder and cascade content as the screen dimensions change from device to device. Twitter Bootstrap, for example, is built on a 12-column grid, 940 pixel width. You can go to bootstrapuikit.com and download the user interface source files for Illustrator and Sketch. We will be using both Bootstrap CSS code as well as the design layout UI components to build and assemble our website layouts in future sections for this course. As we are starting to understand and use the fundamentals of UX, as well as build the foundation for using UX design and development, we quickly got up to speed with what UX is, so let's review. UX is at the center of business, technology, and design. UX combines a lot of educational components, from psychology to human-computer science, interaction, and design. UX has a large number of skills, from personas to wireframes to prototypes. We learned about where UX came from and who does it, and we reviewed some resources to find out more about the UX conversation. We are following a web design process that allows us to consider our users through user profiles and personas, then understand our website structure and organization through a sitemap, all to help us start designing with our technology requirements in consideration for our solutions and the use of open source frameworks like Twitter Bootstrap. Now that we have defined some fundamentals of the site, we can move on to create our site and the next steps of the process, which are inventing, ideating, and building. Up next is section 2 of this course, Applying Human-Centered Design. See you there.